That make you happy? You good? All right. Okay, folks, we'll go ahead and convene our meeting. Y'all take your seat. We're streaming? Okay. Everyone, welcome to the March 26th meeting of the Tampa Heights Civic Association. My name is Rick Fernandez. I have the privilege of being president of the association this year. Welcome to our parlor, as I like to say. We have a streaming capability here through Zoom that Jason Gonzalez, our management assistant, is managing for us tonight, which leads me to just a moment of protocol discussion regarding the Zoom feed. Obviously, we have people here in the room. We also have attendees online. There are two mics now, both of them operational, always good. This one is for in-room. There's this round mic up here on the podium for the Zoom attendees. If you're up here at the podium, please just be attentive to the fact that you have the two audiences, all right? And if you're asked a question from the audience, we'll ask you please to repeat the question because the folks on Zoom probably won't be able to hear the audience member's question. I'll remind you if you forget, but appreciate that. Just a couple of quick announcements before we get into our program. The garden to table dinner, Lena, it's sold out. Okay, well, the announcement is there's a garden to table dinner at our community garden on the 29th. If you don't already have your ticket, you'll have to read about it in the newspaper because it is sold out. Sorry about that. And sorry for me too, because I didn't buy my tickets either. In any event, great event. If you miss it this year, hopefully you'll make it to the next one, which hopefully will be next year. A quick word about the chicanes on Central Avenue. Those of you that have the opportunity to drive Central between Columbus and Florabraska have met, hopefully only in passing, not in confrontation. These islands that the city of Tampa and the Department of Transportation were good enough to add to our decor along Central Avenue a few weeks back. Those chicanes are in place and they are causing problems along the street. That's not necessarily a surprise, certainly to those of us who saw them installed, but nonetheless, it is an issue to be dealt with. There have been vehicles that have been running over the chicanes. That was not to be unexpected, I don't think. I haven't heard anything about damage to cars, although I would imagine that there are probably a couple of flat tires or bent rims out there as a result. There are also barricade barrels out there on top of the chicanes now. Apparently, city or DOT figured out that people are going to run into them, so now they have unsightly DOT barrels sitting on top of the chicanes. I have written to the city. I have written specifically to Vic Bidet at Mobility and to the Department of Transportation, specifically to Justin Hall, who is the incoming secretary to District 7, asking them that they review the application of those traffic calming devices and remove them. We'll see where that goes. I had a phone call from DOT this morning. Was it, Connie? Yeah, this morning, acknowledging that they had received the email, and I'm hoping that we will get some response, hopefully a positive response from Justin Hall. If you're not aware of what I'm talking about, when you leave here tonight, you might just want to take a little detour down Central Avenue and take a look at them. Those of you who live in the area or even live on Central Avenue and have to look at them every day, I think you'll appreciate the need to have them removed. If you have anything you want to submit to the city, this would be a good time to do it. Please talk to me. I'll be happy to give you all the contact information you need. Let me see. All right, our speakers for tonight. We have three folks that were kind enough to come and visit with us tonight. The first that I'm going to call up in just a moment is Aileen Henderson. She is a neighborhood advocate, what I like to call her. To me, that's a grand compliment. She may have another way that she would like to define herself or introduce herself. I'll leave that to her when she's up here at the podium. She's here to talk to us today about issues that have arisen recently regarding the area that we know generically as Woodlawn Cemetery and a plot of land adjacent to Woodlawn Cemetery that is now for sale with, possible redevelopment. And there are issues regarding that. I will leave it to Aileen to put meat on the bones, if you will. No pun intended. It's an issue that has come up before, and now we're resurfacing it. So call it an FYI for members of the community. The cemetery writ large is within the boundaries of Tampa Heights. And I understand, Aileen, that you have a presentation that you're going to make to City Council tomorrow on this issue. So to a degree, we're a bit of a dry run for her tonight. So we're providing a service for the community in that sense as well. We also have with us, and I'm presenting these in order that they're going to come to the podium, Cedric McCrae, who is the, what do I call you, Cedric? He was the interim, now is the incoming actual for real director of the Community Redevelopment Agency. I've known Cedric for several years. He's been involved with city government for a long time, left us for a while, came back, was very happy to see him return. And now he's marshaling efforts regarding the Community Redevelopment Agency. We are, as a civic association in this moment, we are engaged in finding an individual from the Civic Association who would be interested in serving on the Citizens Advisory Committee for the CRA, specifically for the, what's it called? The Tampa Heights Riverside CRA. Yeah, I always get that garbled up. So we do have a vacancy there for someone that would represent our neighborhood, specifically the Civic Association, specifically on that Citizens Advisory Committee. So aside from other things that Cedric will be discussing with us on a grand scale, hopefully we'll be able to drill down on that a little bit and give you some ideas as to why you might be interested in applying for that position through the association. We are going to vet candidates and hopefully submit someone for that position. We also have Dennis Fernandez with us. He's from the Architectural Review and Historic Preservation world, the manager of that world, as it were. I've recently been in very direct contact with Dennis over a development that's supposedly going to take place in a piece of property next door to my home. Connie's in my home. He's been here before, but it's been a while. And always has some very good information to share. And usually there's a lot of good Q&A that comes out of the audience when Dennis is here. So I do look forward to hearing about that. Okay, that said, Aileen, would you care to come up for your dress rehearsal for City Council? Come on up. Again, Aileen Henderson. Yes, ma'am.
Hey, how are you guys doing? Thanks for having me. I appreciated you reaching out and asking if I'd speak today about what's happening here in Tampa Heights. This is, if you could put that agenda, that would be great. Perfect. I threw something together really quick so that we would have something to reference while I was speaking. The parcel that is in question that is now for sale is the same parcel back in 2021, 2022. Some of you may remember the cemetery, same parcel. The difference is instead of them networking with a developer this time, asking for a rezone, they're just selling the property straight out. Of course, our first question was, how can you do that? Because it's a cemetery, right? We proved that. We went to council, they didn't allow for the rezone. And the reason that they did that is because we convinced them it's a cemetery. So we thought we'd put this to bed. What we have quickly found out, now that it is for sale again, is while it is listed as a cemetery on the Hillsborough County Property Appraiser's Office, it's zoned as a RES 50. What does that mean? What that means is they can develop on it. That's what that means. The difference in this time and last time is before they wanted to develop on it and put townhomes. So they were asking for a zoning change to put more homes on it. This time they're going to sell as is. And so they could put 1 to 2 homes because it is a Res 50. For me, the argument is really simple. And let me just say this, it is private property. Why do we use Woodlawn? Because everybody knows Woodlawn. I'm a 5th generation from Tampa. I went to that cemetery with my grandmother, the little girl. I've got tons of family buried there. So when we started the campaign back in 2021, 2022, we needed something identifiable that we could get the attention of people. Save Woodlawn Cemetery made an impact. We had 1,400 people following our page, and we gratefully were unanimous to convince council not to allow that rezone. Bring us to today, we did start another page. It's called Save Woodlawn Cemetery again. I'm a little on the fence with that because I'm a lot more educated now. And technically it is not Woodlawn Cemetery. It is private property. And I'm all for people being able to do what they need to do with private property. Absolutely, that's what they should do. It's their property. But in this case, this is a little different. We've got some special circumstances here. This is a cemetery. It was a cemetery back in 1888 when Woodlawn opened. It was a cemetery back in 1971 when the Greater Tampa Showmen's Association purchased it. And it was a cemetery in 1976 when Showman's Rest took it over from the Greater Tampa Showmen's Association. We have the deeds to support that. Here's where it gets a little tricky. And Dennis understands this more than anyone because he's with history and he understands history. Back in the day, people didn't care. And so for them to purchase that cemetery with the intent to put more graves on it was insignificant to them. They didn't care that there were already bodies there. This was the norm, not in just Tampa, everywhere. This is what they did. This was about making money for those people that were in that industry. They would just take the bodies, bury them, and then bury them on top. Some of you have heard the stories. The Boza, so supposedly out at Marti Cologne, would sit and watch who visited graves, who didn't. And those that didn't, he would remove them and resell the plot. And the city of Tampa even shared with me a story that not that long ago, somebody wanted to bury their family member at Marti Cologne. They had to go make sure there wasn't a body there because they knew the history. So again, I'm all for private property and you being able to do what you want to do. It's too bad that they bought a piece of property that has bodies buried on it. Can you go to the next slide for me, the survey? Back in 2021, 2022, it's the one with all the yellow, the circles or the dots. Either one is fine because it'll make the point for me. So back in 2021, 2022, when we were fighting to protect the parcel, we actually became privy to a few different surveys. This particular survey was done in 2005. This was somebody that came in. It was a private organization that came, a private company that came in that was commissioned to do this. And those yellow dots, what you're looking at, are possible grave sites. Now, I'm going to walk over here to show you. This is what they want to sell. They could not do a survey here because it's a private property. If you look at the patterns, I guarantee if they surveyed that property, we would have yellow dots, which would indicate possible grave sites. But can you go to the other one with this other survey I'm going to show you is from the same survey, by the way. Now this survey is a little different. It's from the same survey. What they did here is you circle red. Possible grave location in this box, black box. And I want you to know how the lines are. So again, there's possible graves there. And that's our issue. It's unfortunate that they purchased a piece of property that nobody cared back in the day, that there were possible bodies there. That's unfortunate. But that's what happened. So I understand that they want to sell this property, but the truth is there are bodies there. We have archaeologists that say this. We have another survey from 2019, and I will tell you that when they tried to do this back in 2021, when it went before the Planning Commission, in the report written by the Hillsborough County Planning Commission, they said for absolute confirmation, it would be necessary to perform test pits, hand dug, or with a backhoe to confirm that graves are not present. And they're not doing it. The big issue I have with their listing is they do not list it as a cemetery. What they say is it's next to a cemetery. And I'm almost certain, according to a Florida statute that I found back on an agenda, you have to disclose that information. I did speak with a real estate agent today. He said he's almost 99% sure that they have to disclose that. But if you read the listing, it's almost like they're challenging us, because in the listing, it says get rid of it. Owner says get rid of it, develop it. So they are out to get as much money as they can to develop that parcel, or from a developer to develop that parcel. And so what I'm asking for is for Tampa Heights to stand behind what we're doing, the neighborhood, the Cemetery Society in particular. It's what I founded back in 2021 because of this. I wanted to make sure that we could protect historic cemeteries or historic grave sites. So what I'm asking for is the support of the Tampa Heights community, because it sits in your area. And what you may not know is the other 6 cemeteries that are on that one piece of property, there's no division. It's one tract of land. There are 6 other cemeteries there, and they're all listed with the Florida Master Site file as historic cemeteries. Just that parcel's not. But by being listed, including the cemetery next to them, which they also own, part of that is preserved through that there's some protection there. And that would include the wall, which we did a lot of history on that wall, and it is a historical wall. Listen, I get that some of you don't care there's bodies there, and I've heard this from many people. Who cares? They're dead. I get it. Archaeologists care, and the reason they care is because it tells the story of our people, of culture, of the past. You have Dennis Fernandez here today, and he said this is probably one of the speakers that has the most questions. So clearly we're interested in history. We need to protect our history. We need to protect that parcel, and we need your support to help us do that. I'm open to questions. I have all the documentation that you would like to see. I will meet with you one-on-one. I will send you the information. We're very transparent. Whatever you need, we're here to send it to you. I do have a Facebook page if you are interested. A lot of information you can get from that page. And you're more than welcome to interact with our followers or ask questions on the page, but I'm just really here to look for your support.
Is that your personal Facebook page or your?
No, it's called Save Woodlawn Cemetery again.
All right. Any questions? Yes, sir.
So you mentioned that's for the other parcels registered as, is it like a historic cemetery or something? And that spot is not, so if there were like, bodies there, or whatever, like, what is the reasoning behind why the other parcels are and that one's not, and how is that, like, why?
So we didn't do our due diligence. I hear you. So we didn't do our due diligence, and what we should have done after that victory that we had is we should have sent it over to the master site and gotten it on the master site.
What's like?
Dennis may know better than I do. I think you just fill out the form and then they will evaluate it. And in my opinion, because this is his world, not mine, I'm very new to this, but in my opinion, based on the fact that we have every other adjoining area listed, I for the life of me can't understand why they wouldn't list that as well.
If they're like, yes,
Yeah, when you file there's a form that you file, and I can show you all of the forms that have been filed for all of the 6 properties that are currently there. They will review that and then they will issue that stat. I think what they say is they're issued an identification number from that point forward, but it does go under review. And again, I'm almost certain, I find it hard to believe that they would not approve that.
Okay. Any other questions for Eileen? Yes, ma'am. And Eileen, would you please repeat the question? We didn't do this last.
Oh, yes, so I'm so sorry.
If you would repeat the question when it's asked.
Yes.
Very supportive. It's history and be developed. I'm curious, in a worst case scenario, would we be able to, would it be possible to move these grave, would it be possible to excavate and move any grave sites down within that land if they are able to develop it?
So the question was, if there are bodies found on the sites, can they be relocated? Yes, they could be reinterred is that's what that's called, to be reinterred. The challenge is, because it's private property, is getting us on that property. Because last time they did a GPR, but we have an archaeologist, Jeff Motes, he's very well known, who made the comment and said that's not good enough. They need an archaeological study to be sure. And I read you that quote from the Planning Commission. They have to have a hand dug or backhoe study. So even if they were able to get on the property to do that, the challenge is, in my opinion, because I have a feeling it's going to be very old, so the bones are going to be very delicate. I'm not sure how we could get them to relocate it adequately.
Okay, any other question?
Already. To prevent this.
Well, a few things. I have a couple of goals
Can
in
you
mind.
repeat the question?
I'm sorry. Yes. So the question was, what is my goal or the goal of those fighting for it? Number one, I want full disclosure. I want the property owner to tell the buyer, potential buyers, that this is a cemetery, because the buyer may not do his due diligence. I don't know that. We don't know that, but they're not selling it. They're saying that they are next to a cemetery in their listing. So that's the number one thing. The number two thing is I want an actual study done, a legitimate study, not the study that they did. I want it noted like it is from the Planning Commission that a real archaeological study needs to be done so we know for sure what was there. That's what I want. And then from there, we move forward. The challenge is we don't have the money, right? Council, I was there a few weeks ago because Councilman Carlson had presented something with regards to these kinds of things. When we have a private property owner who wants to sell property or who refuses to disclose information about the property if there's graves there, he wanted to propose something so that we have funding to be able to do that. And private property owners cannot tell us we don't have the funding because the city of Tampa will fund that. If there's graves found there, then he wanted to make sure that the city has funding to purchase that property. Sort of like we did at Martique Loan. We had this situation. People wanted to buy this parcel. This was just 2 years ago. They wanted to buy this parcel. I spoke and I said, we've got bodies there. Councilman Carlson said, this is the first I've heard of it. The people that were going to buy it did the GPR. Guess what? We found 78 anomalies. And they said, we're not going to buy the property now. And at that time, if we'd have had this ordinance in place that Councilman Carlson was trying to push, the city.
All right.
Thank you, Rick.
Sure thing.
Appreciate it.
And just to be clear, the board has no action on this issue. We're not in a position to offer support or to oppose Aileen's arguments. It is something that will be on our agenda for our next board meeting. And if you have any comments or thoughts, just submit them to us for consideration. Feel free to send us an email or come to the board meeting during public comment. Let us know your thoughts. But I'll make sure it's on the agenda, and I will maintain contact with Aileen for any additional follow-up that we might be able to offer. Okay, that said, Aileen, thank you for that. Appreciate it. Cedric McCrae, CRA, Community Redevelopment Agency Director. Welcome.
Good evening. Everybody awake? Long day. Can you hear me? Sting on. Thank you for the invitation. And no stranger to Tampa Heights. In my time previously at the city and the county, a lot of good involvement from the Tampa Heights Civic Association, and I see some familiar faces in the room. How you doing, Mr. Good to see you. But good evening. My name is Cedric McCrae. And oh, Ms. White's here too. All right. My name is Cedric McCrae. I was just appointed probably about 10, 12 days ago, the new director for the Tampa Community Redevelopment Agency. And we have 8, technically 9, but essentially 8 community redevelopment areas, and Tampa Heights is one of them. It's about 77 acres of the CRA, and a lot of it is focused in and around the area, around Armature Works. The southern boundary goes through the river. To the west is Boulevard. As you go over the bridge, to the north is Ross, and then we cut down Henderson. So that is the technical geographical boundaries of the Tampa Heights CRA. And as Ms. Fernandez noted, one of the main reasons I was coming this evening was to highlight the fact that we do have a vacancy on the Tampa Heights Riverfront CAC, and to try to solicit and see if we had any level of interest. And he mentioned you all's process, so we will respect that. But just wanted to highlight that there is an opportunity if individuals would like to serve on the Tampa Heights Riverfront Community Advisory Committee. So, and I'll be around if you have any questions following the presentation. We have gone through some reorganization within the Tampa CRAs in the last couple years, and made a multitude of changes as it relates to our policies, procedures, and some of the grants that we provide. If I'm slanted in my conversations, I've been serving in the capacity in East Tampa and Drew Park for the last 3 years. So a lot of my interaction has been in that area of District 5. But we actually have various grants that we have for commercial businesses, for facade, things of that nature, internal work that would like to be done, windows, doors, ADA ramps, and the other component of that, and probably the most level that gets the most level of interest, is our housing grants. We just got approval back in January from the CRA board, essentially the city council when they're wearing that hat, on the second Thursday of every month, to approve our housing grant programs across all the CRAs. So we will have budgeted money for rehab grants and things of that nature related to housing, and that covers roofing, doors, ADA ramps, windows, tree trimming, not removal, but trimming, because that's been very popular in East Tampa. And the other component is we have special projects grants, and that is probably a newer addition here in the last few months. And we're looking to, assist businesses or development in the area. I will highlight probably 2 or 3 projects that we have going on in East Tampa right now, geared towards residential. The CRA board has made it a priority to create some and assemble properties for residential development. And we're not talking about, I don't want to say Taj Mahals or anything of that nature, but we're looking at individuals that are in the range of the 80% AMI up to 140, so that we can have a mix of income and uses. And so we're looking at opportunities to create a little bit more density in other areas. And there are certain CRAs that have more downtown. The parcels are a lot more expensive, and it's not as much, but we do have some other CRAs that have a little bit more green space and undeveloped areas that could be opportunities for us to create some housing and affordable housing for residents here in the city of Tampa. So our mission essentially is to use collaboration and innovation with Tampa's community redevelopment areas, and aim to enhance communities, creating thriving and inclusive neighborhoods that enhance quality of life and foster economic growth. And some of the individuals in the room may be familiar with that because they are serving on CACs in East Tampa, and did I see somebody in West Tampa? But and I want to acknowledge Mr. Carrington. Thank you, sir, and Ms. White for all that they do. And Ms. Henderson may have left, but you just heard from her as well. So she has been serving on the East Tampa CAC for about 2 years now. So and it's been a pleasure working with them. Any questions at all? At all? Okay. All right. So with that, I'll just highlight, because I know we want to expedite time. We are currently going through our budget process for FY26. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
You have a question, sir?
Put this up, maybe here, some of them go. You, where, we ain't using it when you like to see. So I want to know, but it's true. Every single tax is coming, what the money comes from. That's why all the next, that, so, it's all jobs and because a company bill, that's what you need, especially blue collar. The power of aggression, politics, levels of nobody's treated equal because of that.
Sir, do you have a question? If not, please be seated. All right. Did you extract a question from any of that?
I heard that the funding is not being directed the way
Okay.
is what I think
Is
he's
there something you can
articulating.
address there?
Not technically, no, but point taken.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Sir. Sir. That's it.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay.
All right. So thank you. We have various focus areas that we're focusing on as the CRAs. The first one I just mentioned was attainable housing, connectivity, and that's just essentially making sure that we're assisting with any type of pedestrian or roadway safety improvements, things of that nature. We can use funding from our tax increment funds to assist in infrastructure improvements. Economic advancement, working with businesses that may need a little helping hand to fix up or enhance the current location, whether or not they own the building and or tenant with facade and things of that nature. So that's a big part of it. Just general overall quality of life and community engagement. So coming out to neighborhood association meetings, interacting with our CACs, and then also setting up engagement events when we have various projects that are going to be going on in one of our community redevelopment areas so that we can solicit feedback from not only our CAC members that are volunteering, but also the community that those projects may impact. And I think we're probably one of the more forward-facing departments, and so we're having scheduled monthly meetings on various times of the month, and I believe Tampa Heights is the third Tuesday of each month. So, and it's right here at Bush Ross. So, those are the things that I'd like to highlight, and I know that I don't want to take up too much of my good friend's time there. But if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. And if you have a spare moment, our website is tampa.gov/CRAs. And we have all of our information, the meetings, and any information related to the maps of CRAs, our grant funded programs for commercial, for residential, and or special projects. So with that being said, I will take my seat. Thank you, sir, for the time. And yeah, I'll take any questions you may have.
Are there any questions? Yeah, I have a quick question. I'm first. Lena, I'll come back to you. Anybody else? Establishing my mental view here. I think I read the other day that funding out of CRAs helping to support the trolley or
Yes,
fare-free trolley service.
that is correct.
Is that correct?
Yes, that's part of the connectivity. Yes, sir.
How did that work? How did that come to be, and how much money are we talking?
So the total cost.
If you could repeat it.
Yeah, yes. The question was how much the funding was for the trolley service to keep it fare free. We have 3 CRAs that the trolley crosses. So we're Ybor City, Channel District, and downtown. And we took a portion of money from each CRA. We massaged that with the community advisory committees, and they approved. And then the CRA board ultimately gave it the blessing, and we moved forward. And it was in the tune of $700,000.
And that's good for 1 year?
It's actually good until the end of this fiscal year. So it definitely is a Band-Aid. 2 of the CRAs do have annual allocations for the streetcar. And that was something that came up during the course of the meeting that we will need to look at some additional funding sources. And it could be CRA, but there may be some other opportunities as well.
Lena?
In order to answer this question, I don't know if I speak very well.
Yes, ma'am.
Here in Tampa, to become a smaller city. We've always talked about trying to help expand. Is there anywhere in the wind that we could get our CRA, for instance, to go down, garden, and the second question is, that not happening, in your position, Baymore, do you know of any other opportunities where Tampa Heights could have services like CRA expanded into our
First question, and I just talked about this with our East Tampa CAC last week, and it came up during the week before, and it came up during the CRA board meeting. We have two bills that are floating in Tallahassee right now, House Bill 991 and Senate Bill 1242. And they have been proposed to sunset and put a definite sunset on community redevelopment areas. And that would be effective July 1 of 2025 if it passes. So I get appointed director and not trying to sunset. So so we're, and I've been on calls with our Florida Redevelopment Association board and our attorney, and then people at the city are actually watching these bills as well, because they are getting legs, and they passed a couple committees, so there is a level of concern. But I will just be honest, I don't know if now is the right time and climate to start having those conversations about expanding boundaries. Essentially, and I know you know this, we have to have a conversation with the county commission and, in the county as a whole, and then they have to agree, because, in some form or fashion that could, they don't actually get some of the taxes that are then being reinvested in those designated areas. So for us to start having that conversation in this climate might not be, the right time. As it relates to expanding the services, with CRAs, they are also giving a lot of attention to special services districts. And I believe several years ago, there was some conversation with the downtown partnership about maybe coming north. And the Ybor city, maybe a couple of years ago, was also looking at that, going further east, on the east side of 22nd in the Gary area, and those neighborhoods. And then there was a lot of the residents that were in that area that did not want to participate, because that was essentially going to increase some of their responsibility financially for the life of the special taxing district. But I will tell you that 5 of the 8 CRAs are scheduled to sunset, or 4 of the 8, by 2034. So essentially, those dollars that are being reinvested would go to the city, and then the CRAs are actively working to cover and subsidize. We can't do continuous maintenance after, I believe it's 2 years, but we're working to try to shepherd some of those things onto some of the departments to and I mean, it's gonna happen. It's just when, we don't know. But setting up a special services district would be the vehicle to do that. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any other questions? Anything online, Jason? No? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Just a brief note. I haven't always been the most, it's a word I want to use. I haven't always been particularly crazy about the city administration. Hey, that's a fair way to put it. But Cedric and the gentleman who's about to come up here, Dennis Fernandez, have been 2 very bright spots in my experience with the city. And there have been others. I don't mean to be exclusive in any way, but you 2 guys have been friends and have been extremely helpful when questions needed to be answered, sometimes very quickly. You've been very responsive, and I really appreciate it. The fact that we have you both here today is just, gravy on the potatoes. But I wanted to acknowledge that while there were still people in the room in case we lose a few folks as we get closer to 8 o'clock. The first time I met Dennis Fernandez, who again is the Architectural Review and Historic Preservation Manager, I believe is when we first purchased our home, or very shortly after we purchased our home. And I went down to his office to take a look at the property records for my house, which is very informative, by the way. If you haven't done that yet, you might want to think about doing it. They have a great reservoir of information there. And to determine that the house was a contributing structure, et cetera, and also to secure a plaque memorializing the fact that the home is a contributing structure to the historic district. Which, is that plaque service still available? You all still doing that? Yeah, I mean, I got a plaque on my house. It says my house is historic. Cool. So if you haven't done that, you might find it an interesting experience. The outside my front is there about and many of you living in the area, what I'm talking about, as you walk around on the sidewalk, some of those sidewalks are stamped with the date, who put it in, and the date that it was put in my case. And there's a name for that you told me, and I forgot what it is. What? Cartouche. It's a cartouche. All right, that's a good word. So I had a cartouche in front of my house saying that sidewalk had been put in 1915. And damn if these guys weren't to tear that sucker out of it. I was very. I got on Dennis shows up in front of my house and they now, I was impressed that I have never forgotten. I'm sorry, I just had to share that. So, Dennis, come on up. Tell us whatever it is you got to tell us. I'm sure it'll be very informative. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Rick. I didn't bring my cape today, but keep that in my office. My name is Dennis Fernandez. I'm sure all the compliments are not based on us having the same last name. Although I do have a brother named Rick Fernandez. So I always know when Rick's calling, it's a little confusing. I have a lot of slides here. I'm going to go through these pretty quick. I know we want to get to questions, and your leadership has this presentation, and of course, you can always reach out to me. So just wanted to begin a little bit about the Historic Preservation Program in the city of Tampa. There's three distinct components to it that deal with historic preservation, and particularly reviews of historic properties, either designated or undesignated. And they occur through three separate commissions: the Historic Preservation Commission, the Architectural Review Commission, which actually is the Architectural Review Board for Tampa Heights Historic District, and the Barrio Latino Commission, which is over the Ybor City Historic District. Next slide, please. So the Historic Preservation Commission is the commission that meets to determine significance of unprotected resources. So at one time, Tampa Heights did not have a local protection. And so this committee would have met and discussed the merits of protecting it, gone through a process of documenting the historic sites, and then gone through a process with City Council to designate it as a local historic district. Also, the Historic Preservation Commission develops the different standards that are applied in local historic districts to ensure that the area's character and the architectural integrity of historic structures is maintained. Next slide. And then once these areas or these buildings are designated as historic by City Council, there's an architectural review component that kicks in to ensure that the structures and the areas that they're situated in remain as historically intact as possible. So the Architectural Review Commission, as I said, it deals with areas like Tampa Heights. The easier way to explain is the Barrio Latino Commission deals with Ybor City, and the Architectural Review Commission deals with everything outside of Ybor City. And that includes new construction, structures that are located in historic areas, additions, exterior alterations, relocations, any demolitions, any type of land use change or variances that are necessary in that area, they review as well. And one thing I like to sort of underscore is that these are changes to the exterior structures. We don't regulate the interior structures. It's just mainly the site and the buildings themselves. Next slide. So the Barrio Latino Commission, as I mentioned, is over the Ybor City Historic District, which is a unique district in that it is a National Historic Landmark District as designated by the National Park Service, which is the highest degree of recognition bestowed on an area. Next slide. And then the other three local historic districts are the Hyde Park Historic District, the Seminole Heights Historic Districts, and the district we're focusing in on this evening, the Tampa Heights Historic District. Next slide. The ARC also regulates changes to the different individually designated properties, and we have different groupings of those. Some of these are located in different areas, such as West Tampa, Beach Park, the historic bridges over the Hillsborough River, and then others, as shown on the next slide, are just individually designated properties that are kind of throughout the city. That includes not only buildings, but it can be sites and objects too, such as the Oak Lawn Cemetery and the St. Louis Cemetery in downtown, which is the city's first burial ground. Our most recent in the lower right is the Richard Dobie House in Dobieville, just on the edge of Hyde Park. Mr. Dobie was an African-American businessman and an entrepreneur who donated greatly to the benefit of the city. And we just, a couple of weeks ago, were able to designate his home as a local historic landmark. Moving to Tampa Heights, the historic district, each historic district has a period of significance that it somewhat established its character within. And for Tampa Heights, it's from 1890 to 1945. And anything that's built within that period of the era would be considered to be a historic or contributing structure. The area was recognized by the National Register of Historic Places in 1999, designated a local historic district in 2000, and it has approximately 536 buildings, and over half of those are considered to be historic or contributing structures. This map kind of indicates the historic district. The red line indicates the local historic district. The blue line indicates the National Register district. The one that the ARC focuses on is the local historic district, and that essentially roughly extends from 7th Avenue on the south. It kind of meanders Tampa and Florida on the west, goes up to about Adelaide north, and then the distinct boundary of 275 on the east. So anything in that area is being reviewed, whether it's historic or non-historic, any changes, any new construction, any of those activities that I mentioned. Most of what we review through my department are going to be administrative reviews, but there are a number of activities that are required to go to the ARC at a public hearing. You might see these yellow signs around your neighborhood. That indicates when a property is actually going through some sort of city process, and we have our own signs when we indicate that they're going to be going through the ARC. See the different boxes that can be checked there, and the QR code provides you a link to all the information to the application and all the exhibits that have been submitted for that. You also receive in the historic district, you receive mailed notice anywhere 350 feet from the property line boundary. And so anything like exterior major additions, new construction, particularly demolitions or relocations, are going to be held at a public hearing, and then that's going to be noticed, and you're going to get some sort of interface with that, the opportunity to come and participate in the review and to provide public comment. And that's really a distinct factor that's different from an area that's not a local historic district, because if someone were building in an area that's not designated a local historic district, you wouldn't have an opportunity to participate in that discussion and to provide public comment to one of the reviewing boards. So that's a definite benefit of living in a historic district and being ingrained in the decision-making of that, along with this board that's appointed to look after the interests of the area. Next slide. So much of our work is done at administrative level. Not everything within the district that's happening is required to go to that public hearing process. So at administrative level, for most of Tampa Heights, which is constituted primarily of the district and single or two family dwelling units, we're reviewing the basic maintenance of structures administratively, fences, roof trade permits, exterior repairs, general repairs, site changes. And then if it's a non-historic structure, we review the demolition request for those structures. For commercial buildings, which we have indicated on the next slide, that palette changes a little bit to kind of deal with a lot of storefront issues. Within commercial properties, you have businesses that are kind of coming in and coming out. We're not managing that at a level that it requires a board review, but if they're coming in to make a major change, then we can determine that it does warrant a board review. So one program I wanted to mention is the ad valorem tax exemption program. This is a program that is engaged with local historic districts. And if a property is coming in and it's a contributing structure, and you're going to be doing major work to that structure, such as an addition or major rehabilitation, you can apply for the ad valorem tax exemption, which is a property tax exemption that's in place for 10 years to the improvements of the property. So if you have, just in rough numbers, you have a historic structure and you're going to come in and do an addition and some remodeling, rehabilitation, your property taxes are going to go up. And so what this program does is essentially seeks to not penalize the property owner for improving the historic property. And so there's an exemption that occurs for 10 years that basically locks in that property at the pre-rehabilitation assessment. So it's a great program. We are constantly engaged with it. It exempts out the city portion and the county portion. And so it's obviously in place to promote preservation, and it's available for both residential and commercial properties. And another program that is in place in your area is the Interstate Historic Preservation Trust Fund program. And this was essentially a mitigation for the impacts that are occurring from the expansion of the interstate, particularly the first phase, which began back in the 1990s, or I don't say first phase, but one of the more recent phases. And this offers, this is money that the city received as mitigation for the impacts of the historic district through the sale of properties. I don't know, some of the residents that may have been here a while may remember when properties were being relocated along the edge of the interstate, and those properties were being sold, and the proceeds to those properties went into a fund that is managed through my division. And so we offer two different programs. There's a low interest loan program and a homeowner qualified grant program in West Tampa, Tampa Heights, and Ybor City. And that recently has been expanded to entail a $25,000 grant that's available for exterior restoration, re-roofing, or any type of change that's visible to the public. So it wouldn't be appropriate for someone who maybe is coming in and doing a bathroom remodel, but if you're doing exterior improvements like siding, windows, roofs, porch reopenings, porch detailing, this might be an option for you. One negative thing is that we just closed our cycle today, but we offer 2 cycles a year. There'll be another cycle coming out in the fall, most likely at the end of September. And when we offer these cycles, we do notify the neighborhood organizations that are within these areas, and we do post that on our website. So, keep in touch with your neighborhood association, and they can share those deadlines with you. There's usually one in March and one in late September, October. And these are some examples of some projects that have been funded over the years. It's been going on for about 19 years now. The loan program tends to fund larger projects such as the Morgan Cigar Factory in West Tampa or the San Sushi building in Ybor City, although smaller projects can be funded as well. And the grant program really focuses in on homesteaded properties. That'll be on the next slide. So you can apply for grants for things like window restoration, even window replacement. If you have inappropriate windows, historically inappropriate windows, and you're going back to a historically appropriate window, that could be an option. Siding, as I said, roofs, porch detailing. You know, some porches have been enclosed and the owners want to reopen those and reestablish the details of the porch. This could be a funding option for you. And then Rick had mentioned our historic preservation plaque program. We offer these plaques. We don't profit off of them. They're just essentially the cost of the plaque to any property that's either locally designated within a historic district or those are individually designated within as a historic landmark. And so we work with the owner to agree on the year that it was built. That can be an interesting process sometimes. Some people think the years are a little bit different than what the records show, but we always use the word circa in there to kind of, that means sort of about. So it's a great program. These are high quality. We're actually going to go down to one, I think when Rick bought his, it was probably about $125. And now because of just the cost of the bronze, it's gone up to about $190. So we're going to go out and bid these and try to get a foundry that will lower the price a little bit. And we're working on that, but they are still available for purchase. And that does conclude my overview. I'm happy to answer any questions. And as I said, we have a lot of resources on our website at tampagov.net.
Questions? Yes, sir. You mentioned spec and good buildings for a bunch of possible, you know, what's the first something really expensive. You're going to pay for them and some people don't qualify. And any thoughts?
So the
Repeat that.
yeah, the question was about window replacement, particularly emphasizing storm protection and the ability to maybe use alternative materials is what I understood that to be. So essentially, the first goal is that we try to do is to protect the original elements of a historic structure. So, you know, we kind of begin there and start working backwards. So we try to get, you know, the property owners information to make decisions. And there's a lot of misinformation about historic windows and about new windows and what those might be able to do for you in a historic home. And so the window, you know, the window itself, if we were going to replace the window, we would steer you towards another wood window that had the impact qualities that you're looking for storm protection. If it were a wood window in that type of situation, some windows, you know, were originally metal, and so we would go with a metal window in that particular case. But otherwise, there are other systems that can protect those openings. You know, there's panels and there's shutters and, you know, different types of protection that is out there that would be applied instead of maybe affixed to the structure. One other thing just to remember about windows and storm protection is that the window itself is only as secure as the opening that it's installed in. So if you're dealing with a 100-year-old house and you're installing a, you know, impact window into that window is not going to have the same, you know, fortifying effect that it would in new construction. And there's been a lot of studies in different areas that have been impacted by storms. And normally what fails in those situations is the opening and not the window itself. So, you know, it's a little, you know, the window companies have a lot of money to promote their products out there. And so it's really good to do research. And I would maybe point you towards like the National Park Service technical requirements at nps.gov. And there's a lot of good information for historic buildings. But the short answer is we try to protect the original materials. If we can't, we try to go to something that looks very similar, but still has the properties that meet the building code. And then we kind of work back from that point.
Is The grant program is that tied to financial resources of the applicant in some way, and if so,
Right. There is an income threshold on the grant program. It's 140% of median income. So it's pretty generous for city programs. Normally that threshold is lower, and that's because we wanted to encourage not only participation, but kind of realizing that our areas are, demographically changing, and the ultimate goal is to find the right funding source for the right home owner. So if you go on that site and you click on the trust fund, there's essentially a per person household income level that you can check. It obviously goes up. More people in their house, the higher the level goes up. So I have not had too many individuals that applied recently that haven't qualified because of the income levels. Well, we had people applying that had 2 and 3 houses and they could afford to do their own improvements. So we have to kind of draw that line somewhere. Yes, ma'am.
Eric?
So we're at
Okay.
we are it's historically possible or compliant and not
Sure.
well, of course, it includes elements that on the outside, specifically people with every element of the historical structure.
So the question was about doing an addition on a structure and ensuring that qualify for the ad valorem tax exemption program and what modifications might be accommodated within that program. So, I mean, the quick answer without seeing drawings and site plans and whatnot is that we are a sort of a living, evolving historic district in Tampa Heights. And it's not a museum district where you're trying to preserve every single element. So there is room both in the design standards for the area and the Secretary of the Interior standards, which we also apply for doing additions and making changes. So that's anticipated. It's a major part of my job is making sure that additions are done in a way that don't overwhelm or change the character, the important characteristics of a historic structure. So yeah, you can accommodate that in a design and still qualify for that program. Yeah. Yeah, I know.
This house, I mean, stuff like that, it's pretty incredible. Just that is all.
So for the question was about being qualified if you're outside the historic district boundaries for the ad valorem tax exemption program. Is that correct? So you do have to be located within either the national or the local or both to qualify for that program. It's an incentive for preservation in historic areas. So otherwise, if it were a landmark structure or something in a multiple properties listing, it could also qualify, but it has to have some type of historic designation involved.
Other questions? Roger?
Well, the building has undergone many renovations for many years. The owner wants to renovate the building. Can those distinctly identifiable additions be restored to their dates, even though it's one building? Do you understand my question?
So I believe so. Let me repeat it back and see if I'm on with you. So I believe the question was if a property is going through renovation and it has different periods of additions, can those different periods be essentially restored back to their date of construction? I would say yes. I would be very thoughtful. I can tell you that most property owners or homeowners really want more of a unified architectural appearance. But as long as you are accurately conveying the historic evolution, architectural historic evolution of a property, that would be appropriate and would be actually the preferred method to move forward with. We don't see that with residential structures often, because usually there's just major additions done at some, every 30 years so to that. But you do see that particularly with commercial buildings, that it may have several additions of different periods.
Is there any question online, guys? I'm entertaining questions. If you have a question, sir, please state your question.
So the question was about the grant and loan program and I think how those funds are directed. So these programs are awarded directly to the property owners, whether they be a commercial property owner or a residential property owner. And we do not fund the developer or the contractor. We fund the project, and then the property owner determines which qualified professional they're going to use for the work.
Thank you. That's all we have time for.
Some of these people, yes, there's a small level of money going, but some of them, they cannot do it.
That's correct.
And I'm sure is, are you going to contact with the band? Are you going to have contact with the makeshift people like that? You're going to put 20% on the loan, because I went to the city hall to get a permit. Oh, 2 contractors. From the store, they want a 24% interest. And you have to do it. I didn't agree with it. That all the city. They said, you don't need that. The company is different. They all do it. What is the law? And then they already want to get you to do for 6 months. You know what this kind of thing can make?
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Sit down.
I like to speak.
You did. You're done.
All right.
Is there any other questions? Are there any other questions? Yes, sir.
Jackson House.
I do. The question was about the Jackson House, which is a local landmark that's an African-American boarding house on the south side of town. The Jackson House is owned by not a city-owned property. The Jackson House Foundation, and we actually participate in those meetings with the foundation. They're working towards some sort of plan that will allow them to restore the property. They've been engaged in that for many, many years, as you might suspect. And the biggest issue for that has been the fact that they are situated at 0 property line on the east and west side of that property, and they have no access points other than an alley into the building. So they have been in long-term negotiations with the surrounding property owner to, essentially formulate a 10-foot easement around the building, which is required not only for fire separation, but also practicality to be able to operate the building, which they have a vision of making that into a museum that kind of harkens back to the era of segregation and, what it was like during that time for people that were, traveling to Tampa and having to stay in a segregated boarding house. But we're working on it, and believe me, I've been working on it for 20 years.
Cedric?
Restoration and renovation of the property.
Right. And Cedric's very involved with it. There's a lot of individuals that are really trying hard to get something to happen with the Jackson House. And right now, it's the problem. The problem are these dynamics that are involved with the property itself.
Yes, sir.
Correct.
And in addition,
So kind of speaking to the condition of the building, if it could be rehabilitated. I think you can rehabilitate, just about anything. But, I think and there has been structural evaluations recently within the last 6 months of it that have pointed out the areas that are going to need to be either replaced in whole or at least substantially fortified. So there's going to be a lot of work that's going to happen. And I think that we're not going to know until we actually get into it, but there's a lot of people that support the project. The Civic Foundation is behind it as well. And there's a lot of qualified, professionals that are willing to kind of take up that challenge and try to save as much of it as we can. And we had this very interesting LiDAR scanning project that happened a few years ago where USF went in and digitally scanned the entire house and captured a lot of the details so that those could be reconstructed if the time comes that becomes necessary.
Okay, anything online, Jason? Okay, that's it.
Okay.
We're good.
Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, Kareem, I'm sorry. I didn't see you.
Yes, sir.
Was there a particular time where the grid or boundaries for the properties were drawn and things like that, and how considered, like how close the property is to the property line? Because I'm looking some places like East Tampa, you have houses on top
Right,
of property line, on the pretty sure of maybe.
right.
Could you give me some history about those grids?
So the question deals with sort of, the environment around the older properties with parcel lines and setbacks, that sort of thing. So, prior to 1940, there wasn't a lot of zoning going on really in the United States, but particularly in the South. And so that's why you see a lot of these very shallow setbacks on some of the properties. I mean, that can be the entire building or portions of the building. We have within the city, I've dealt with many properties that actually encroach into the adjacent property or built in an alley, So that's a common factor that you find. One of the main things that have changed that element over time have been both fire codes and building codes, which have come in and recognized, like in 1905, there was a fire in Ybor City that took out pretty much the entire northern part of Ybor City because it went building to building to building and took out, hundreds and hundreds of buildings. So obviously that's not something that anybody wants. And so these building codes and these fire codes came in, but the Jackson House is from 1895 and predates all of that, which we find often in our historic areas.
Okay. All right, thank you all.
Thank you.
Dennis, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, folks. We're adjourned.